Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Hello, everybody. It's been a long time for me, but I am finally back. I am here. We are back with another episode of All Knicked Up. We have a lot to get into today because the season is approaching. The Knicks are playing very well in the preseason, as we know. So we're going to get into a little bit of that with you guys. We're going to get into a bunch of things, a bunch of different topics. We've got a good show planned for you guys. So let me bring the guys in. You've seen them more recently than you've seen me. So Ty, Joe, it's good to be back.
Oh, he's going Patrick Bateman on us. He nicknamed Cole like American Psycho, and it was the
American
perfect nickname.
The American Psycho. He's going to kill you. That's all I'm going to tell you. He don't look the part, but he's going to kill you.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, interesting choice.
He's got the preppy look, but he's got the Hannibal Lecter hair.
Yep.
From Hannibal.
Me? Yeah, I know. Just, well, whatever.
Him, not you.
Cola.
Yeah,
Cola.
Cola.
Talking about.
Oh, I thought you meant me with the way my hair was.
No, he's got the Mads Mikkelsen kind of Hannibal Lecter dude.
White going? Oh, yeah, man. He's the American Psycho. That's who he is.
It's true, man. He's one of the guys we're definitely going to talk about. I mean, I knew he had this in him, but he definitely has seemed to pick things up faster, a little bit faster than maybe I would have expected. So it's been cool to watch him play, at least in the preseason. We're going to get into all of that. So yeah, good to be back. You guys did a show last week. I was back last week. I had just gotten back. I don't know if I was home yet, but I had landed when you guys started the show. So I don't think I was home yet, but I did take a little bit of a listen to what was going on. I did check it out. So, I thought you guys did a very good show. We'll get into a little bit more. Huh?
It's good to have you back, though.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a nice trip. It was good to go. I was over in Germany, as you guys know. It was good to be over there for I was there for Oktoberfest, and then I actually went to the town my father's family's from. So it was cool to do that. I rented a Porsche 911 Cabriolet. I drove that around for a while. So that was fun. Yeah, man. Then just the beer and like the beer over there just tasted different. I don't know if why, but it did. It tasted better. And then of course German food. I like German food. So if you're a fan of German food, I finally got to have some authentic German food. I ate at a couple of really authentic German restaurants. So I didn't have any of the crazier dishes. Like they have some dishes on there that that's not my thing. But the staples that I know, I actually had them now over in Germany, and they were pretty good. So, but by the end of the trip, I was ready to come home. I think a lot of people probably feel that way when they're on vacation. Eventually, you just get to a point you're like, all right. And Joe, we discussed this. I said I'm very American, and I was dying for some American food and ways of life and things like that. So, but yeah,
very good. What was the German side that you make? Is it Patzel? It's something like Patzel.
Spätzle. Yeah. It's a noodle. Yeah, it's a noodle. There's different parts of Germany make it a different way. The part where my dad's family is from, they look more like dumplings, so they're a little bit thicker. A lot of the spätzle that you see that's served in German restaurants and places is these small little noodles. Some of them make it where it looks like gnocchi as well. Looks like the Italian gnocchi. So yeah, but yeah, that's what you're thinking of spätzles. They're fantastic. They make them with cheese, kind of their macaroni and cheese. They call it Kaiser Spätzle with bacon in it, and it's very, very good.
Not Sorze. Kaiser what?
Huh?
Kaiser Sorze.
Not Kaiser Soze, no, not Kaiser Soze.
Make sure people know. It's gonna be limping in the end. None of that stuff.
None of that, man. It was great though. Joe, I know you've been to Europe. Ty, I don't know if you have, but I know you're much more of the Caribbean warm weather vacation guy. I understand that with you.
Call me the new Billy Ocean. That's what I tell people. I'm Billy Ocean. I'm a Caribbean king, though, in this situation. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. If you get a chance, you should go over there. I think
No, I'd like to visit Europe at some point. It's not off the list, that's for sure.
So, all right, but let's get into the Knicks because that's why we're here and that's why people watch us. So let's get into the New York Knicks. So right now they look pretty good. They're undefeated in the preseason. It doesn't matter who they play. They all seem to be buying into the theme of the team, the defense first, the hustling, the hard work, the identity that Thibodeau has instilled in them. But I'm always very weary about preseason. Like what can I really believe and put stock in, and what is just because it's preseason. So I'm gonna leave that question open for you guys. What do you think is real, and what do you think is a mirage?
It's on you, Joe. Go ahead.
I think, to tell you the truth, the biggest thing that I'm taking from preseason is viewing the bench. Honestly, I think it's hard to judge a new lineup with two new starters, frankly, by the preseason. I don't think you're getting an actual take of what the potential of the team is. I think you're just looking for sparks and things that are starting to kind of gel between them and what's possible down the road. I think for me, the preseason's always about kind of what the unknown is. And in this case, that's our bench. So even last night, I really enjoyed watching that game and spending as much time with the first rotation out and the second rotation out and getting a chance to really kind of look at them. Fortunately, Tibbs doesn't play them 48 minutes in the preseason, the starters. So, that's at least a good thing. I paid more attention to this preseason because there is a lot more unknowns. The bench isn't what the bench was last year. The starting five isn't what the starting five is. So it's been kind of like not real games, but kind of an infomercial about these are the players of your team now, and this is what your team looks like, and this is what we're hoping is going to happen. So it's been entertaining. You start to see the potential, like I believe it was the second game you really kind of saw the pick and roll between Cat and Brunson and seeing that work, and we're hoping there's going to be a lot more of that. But just seeing Kolek really kind of come out and really assert himself well. And Daddy I posted on the fan page, he went wilding in the second quarter. I mean, it's neat seeing some of those things. So it's been an entertaining preseason. And again, it's not a good barometer of what this team is. It's still very much developing, but it's been an entertaining preseason. I don't know if I answered your question fully, but that's what I took from it.
Well, no, I mean, it's good to be entertained. Yes, I definitely agree with you there.
You're not entertained.
Especially a game like last night when their starters were playing and ours weren't, and we still won the game. So, I mean, that's an impressive thing for those young guys, at least, to hang their head on, like, hey, we went against a starting NBA unit and we won. Yes, the stakes aren't high, or there's not really many at all, but it was still nice to see. So, Ty, what about you? You're a little bit more critical of things usually in the preseason than we are.
Everything, yeah, really happy with basketball.
Yeah,
I'm obviously I'm old school, but I'm always used to when guys, the prior generation of NBA talent, they would spend the off season working on something. But what they would do, usually, I was watching an interview with Derrick Rose recently. It was a replay. He was on the Math Hoffa podcast. But what had happened was he talks about NBA players usually can only take the offseason to work on really one thing and try to master it and incorporate it into their game. They can't work on 10 different things. They work on usually one thing, try to master it, and then you see if they can execute it during the regular season when an opposing defense is trying to combat it. That's what I usually like to see when the preseason comes around. See who worked on what. How good are you? Are you sharp? Are you in shape? All these things to me kind of play a part. I don't care about the record being 4-0. Everybody's not pulling out their best lineup. You're not executing your best plan. At that point, you're just kind of feeling out the game and seeing what people got. For me, the thing that I did notice was the cohesion. You could see that Brunson and Cat can work together. That's one thing you can say. You could see that the young guys actually did spend the offseason working on their games. But you can find who didn't really work on their game. That's another thing they can come out to see who needs a lot of work and still, it's still in a molding situation. But for the most part, I would say about 98% of the Knicks players that were either here prior or that were drafted seemingly worked on their game all year long. There was not one guy that I seen when he came into the actual game where I was like, oh God, he looks terrible out there. Even Jericho Sims, I know he got really criticized for whatever. They just don't like Jericho, I guess. But he's put up pretty decent numbers, in spite of not being liked. Everybody's calling for Ariel Hakpurdy, obviously, to kind of take his spot. But, you can see Jericho built himself up. He spent a lot of time in the gym. Is he a polished rock? Absolutely not. But you're getting a chance to kind of see what he does have in the bag and that, he's capable of doing certain things, especially offensive rebounding. So,
offensive rebounding.
Yeah. We've seen some glimpses. I mean, Donte was very surprising. I missed that part, unfortunately. So I catch it on the highlights. But what we saw, Joe put a great article up earlier, and I endorsed that in saying that during Summer League, we saw he had the capability. He was fearless on the floor. The question mark was whether or not he would get his legs to be able to get a jump shot. And what do we see now? The jump shot is falling. So the kid spent the whole offseason working on his game. He's also around 6'9", 6'10" now, which is like absurdly crazy.
With the potential to grow more.
Yeah, so you might see a Kevin Durant type body build. I mean, he's a little thicker than Kevin, but I'm saying height and skill-wise, he's going to be a small forward, a wing player. So we've got two great wings, obviously, on this team right now that he can learn from. So we've seen that the teams, the players have gotten past the learning curve. Like the cohesion is always going to be the greatest question. But right now we're seeing the second unit come in and they've been playing together for the last 5 years. I mean, that's really what it looks like to me. I mean, because teams are throwing defenses at them. They played against what? The Timberwolves, which is a very good defensive team. They were the best in the league, I think, last season. So they do have a commitment to playing defense, and the Knicks still won that game with a new – and it didn't come to me until a couple of days ago. Someone mentioned the Knicks have a new starting five also. This team has never played together as a five. So they've mixed and match, obviously, with OG, but OG was out. Cat never played with Brunson. Josh Hart was not in the starting lineup. Mikal Bridges wasn't here. And what do we see now? We're starting to see those guys actually have some sort of chemistry. So I do believe that the preseason does show habits. That's the thing I always look for. What brand new habits do you have that are going to be a positive for the team, or bad habits that will be a negative for the team? And right now we're seeing them super focused like their coach. They're coming out to win every game. They play hard, no pause on that. They just play hard. These guys go out and they give a full-on effort, on the court. And how can you be mad at that as a Knicks fan to know that these guys came prepared? They don't got to get ready. They are ready.
Can I ask you guys something?
Certainly.
How did Bridges' drum shot look to you during the preseason?
He changed it.
Looks weird.
He changed it.
Well, that's what we talk about when we say, like Ty was just saying, guys work on things in the off season. They change things. I always thought his jump shot was weird. So,
high release point. I mean, really high release point.
So, I mean, I never understood why his shot went in as much as it did. I used to say that to these guys in college. I'm like, I don't know why this guy hits all these threes. Like I don't see it, but there you go. So, I don't know. But I think, like, just to say, follow up on what you guys were saying about, some guys hit the gym in the off season. Sims doesn't look like he's thinking as much out there. I feel like that was a problem with his first couple of seasons, but now I feel like he's just reacting a little bit more, which is better. That's what you want. Huck Porty's looked very, very good in the minutes he's played. That's been a very, very welcome sign for me in this, that we have a guy a center who is talented, who's been a professional before, and he's coming in and he's kind of playing right away. I mean, last night he was dunking everything. They even asked him about that afterwards, and he said one time he didn't realize how high he was when he got in. When he took off, he was like, "Oh damn!" But then he just kind of had to throw it down. So that kind of amped him up. The team seems to like each other, which is very good. I'm not seeing no egos right now. I know there's one guy we're going to talk about in a little while because it's going to be interesting to see how his season moves forward a little bit. But I did want to focus on these three because they're potentially going to be the backup centers, in my opinion. So until Mitch comes back, these guys are going to be getting minutes, and they're probably going to be getting them at both positions. They're probably going to be getting them at the 4 and the 5, I would think. Because you can probably play Cat still a little at the 4 if you want, and slide one of these guys in if you want to go bigger in the front court. So the way Precious played last night, it's hard for them not to just say, okay, he's the backup at both, and that's it. You just go with him at that position, or eventually maybe even start him like we were talking. I was going to go there with Josh Hart. We'll get there in a little while. But how do you guys see this breaking down with these three? Do you think Sims and Huck Porty are going to get minutes because they're showing they deserve minutes now? Or do you think Tom being Tom is going to go back to the guys he trusts, and it's going to be Precious and Cat playing 40 minutes a night, and that's it, whatever the case may be, screw the other guys? That's typical Tom. So,
yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking like there's something about Jericho Sims that I just think he's going to be on the bench at some point. I look at a guy like Huck Porty, and he just looks like a Tom Thibodeau type of player. He's just out there. He's just nasty. He's just a grimy, grungy, looking to take the rim off. He's just in the right place at the right time. He's super aggressive. You don't gotta, wait for him to do anything. I think that's the thing with Sims. I agree with Eric that he's not thinking anymore, but there's always a hesitancy in his game, like for somebody so athletic as Sims, with all those natural God-given gifts. And he kind of plays like a guy who's not athletic sometimes. Like he's very timid. It happens with people who, and I know Joe's a gentle giant himself. Sometimes when you're a big person, and I can say that for myself, we're not the most aggressive people. Like, we're like, oh, we don't want to hurt you. We treat everybody like little bunnies. Like, oh, no. I want to push my weight around. I might be too intimidating to you. Oh, you speak a little quiet when you're around people because you don't want to be that big dude in the room, imposing yourself upon people. Sims kind of reminds me of that. He's like, oh, yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody really that bad. I know I can, So you never get to see the full unleash of Sims. Whereas a guy like Huck Porty is like, well, screw the bunnies and the little kids, just get out the way. I don't care if I'm going to scare you. He's just coming in like a whole wolf. He's just howling at the moon, and he's a very grimy player. So when you see that and Sims, I'm like, Sims don't got enough attitude to me to be a Tom Thibodeau mainstay. Whereas opposed to a guy like Huck Porty, I think he's going to come in and I think he's going to take his minutes. I think eventually he's in the right place at the right time. I always say that's one of the greatest skills in basketball. And people don't notice is being in the right place at the right time. And he's always in the right place at the right time. You never see him out of sorts. I think and then you go to Precious. Yeah, I can repeat the same narrative about Precious. He's always in the right place at the right time. He's always super aggressive. Like we're seeing a whole dynamic. I always tell people, Eric, what did I say? That wasn't the OG Anunoby trade. That was the Precious Achua trade. It wasn't OG was the throw-in because all of last season, what did we see? We saw everybody was laughing. It's like, oh, we're getting Precious. Yeah, now everybody watching Lord of the Rings now. And they're like, oh, that Precious is what we're getting. We're getting this dude that's dynamic who fits the New York landscape very well. He's from obviously the area.
He's a New Yorker, yeah.
He's a New Yorker. Blood in the ground. We often talked about that a lot, about having an understanding about the beat and the pulse of this city. It matters when you play basketball here because now you got an understanding of what the culture is around the city, not just basketball wise. So, you got a guy like him. I just can't see. Sims looks like somebody from California. Keep what it is.
He really does now too, with the hair change that he made with the braids and stuff.
He got the whole Soul Glow braids going. I mean, dude. He looks like he belongs. And there's no offense to you Californian people. It's just we know New York. This is the Beast Coast over here. Everything over here is very rough and rugged. Whether you're in New York, Boston, Philly, whatever, that's the mindset of this area. Sims, just to me, as talented as he is and as high jumping as he is, I just don't see him being the guy that lasts out of those three.
All right. I mean, I think defensively is where he kind of stands out a little bit more because of his athleticism. He's quicker. He can do things that I think the other two guys can't. Although Precious has really long arms, so that helps him. His wingspan is very, very big. I do see, like I said, I see a little bit more from Sims this time. I just don't know. I kind of agree with you there. Like, where's the limitation? Like, how far is he gonna go? And I'd kind of like to see some of the offense that we saw that he was practicing with Mike. Like, why work with Mike Bibby if he's a 6'9" guy? Like, if you're working with Mike Bibby, it's for shooting purposes most likely. So where's the jump shot? I'd like to see him take a little bit, takes a couple of jump shots to see if that was actually something that they wanted him to do or he was just doing it on his own. I have no idea. But I would like to see when these guys show something in their off season, when they like focus on something and they actually let us see it in your mind. You're saying, okay, maybe we'll see this. And then we never see it. Part of that's coaching, I believe, as well. I think the coach has a certain idea of what he wants these guys to do. Right. So, definitely. But Joe, what do you think with these three? How do you see the minutes being allocated and how would you do it? Like, how would you play them?
I definitely have thoughts. Definitely have thoughts on this. So one, I'm going to put on the shelf. Okay. Because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about that later. But what we're going to be talking about later and what I'm going to talk about now really comes down to one thing, and that's offensive rebounding. Offensive rebounding was the key to our offensive efficiency last year. One of the reasons we were as effective as we were. And we lost our best offensive rebounder to injury and our second best offensive rebounder to free agency. And in the evolution of this team, we have become a team that is more dependent, albeit skilled, at shooting the three-point shot. So the thing that you need if you're going to shoot threes, and we're most certainly going to shoot threes, are second chance opportunities. Because if you go cold without offensive rebounding at the wrong time, it's going to burn you. So I think, to tell you the truth, that thing on the shelf has to do with offensive rebounding and matchups and who he's playing with. Mm-hmm. And why I would make a change to the starting lineup. But we're talking about the other two here, Sims and Hakporti. I give it to Sims because I think Sims understands the position in this system and what Tibbs wants out of this system. I don't think Hakporti is really there yet. I think, he has probably more potential, I would say, with the athleticism and a little bit bigger. But I think Sims will provide that more than Hakporti right now. I haven't seen that necessarily from him yet. It doesn't mean it's not there. But whoever provides the offensive rebounding that this team has missed over the offseason is going to get those minutes. That's my thought.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that's one thing that we're going to miss more with Mitch being out because he's so good at it. Is the offensive rebounding. And so if you have a guy on the team who can give you that, and I agree with you, I think Sims even showed it last night, got a couple offensive rebounds, was doing well on the offensive glass. So he got 10 rebounds in 20 minutes, which I think is very, very good as well. Mm-hmm. So, I see that as well. And familiarity, right? Like he knows what the coach wants. He's been in the system for a few years. That probably does give him the edge. I know where you're going with the other on the shelf, so let's just bring him off the shelf. Because he has looked really out of place in the preseason. He's probably the one guy who I'm like, I don't know what to even to say, because I don't think there's anything wrong per se. Like, but Josh Hart probably should not be in the starting five. I think he probably would be working better now off the bench, which was why they got him to begin with. He wasn't supposed to be a starter. I think Tibbs is being nice because of how he produced last year in the playoffs. He does definitely deserve a shot or a look. But I think long term, if you're gonna go, if the goal, if Cat is gonna be your starting five, even when Mitch comes back, then you got to go, I think, with a more traditional power forward, whether it be a Chua Sims, however they decide to go there. But I kind of agree with you. So, Joe, if you want to pick up from there, you can. And your thoughts?
Start pressure Chua for the fact that there is really not strong rebounding in that starting five. OG Anunoby at the 4, he's not a strong rebounder. That's not his game. If you look at his stats through his entire career, they support that notion. He has a lot of skills. Rebounding is not really strong considering the size and the strength of him. He hasn't shown an affinity for it, right? So maybe not your best selection at the 4. He's more of a wing. I see him as a small forward. I believe Mikal Bridges can operate at the 2. That's just what I believe. I think Precious Achiuwa will bring something to the starting lineup, perhaps not to the same degree, but what we missed from Hartenstein in that starting lineup. I think Josh Hart is saying all the right things right now, but the usage rate in that lineup is going to get to him. It's going to affect him. It's going to affect his attitude, I think. I think moving him to the bench, you will get more out of him because he needs to be involved. He needs to have a higher usage rate. He has complained about this in the past as early as the first third of last season.
Mm-hmm.
He's somebody like, as much as I hate to admit it, when I played basketball, if I wasn't getting touches in the post, my engagement kind of slipped a little bit. And that's just the truth. And I think it's the same thing with Hart. I think if you keep him in that starting 5, just floating around to occasionally pull down rebounds, it's going to affect where his head is at with the game. And I don't think it's going to be good. I think having him just run wild in the second unit will bring out the best of him. And I think it'll bring the best out of the second unit as well. And again, if it's an ego thing with him, you know he's going to be there when the game's on the line. You know he's going to be on the floor. And that really is the most important testament of a coach's belief in a player. So, again, I think we're all seeing the same thing. I know John's been banging the gong on this too, one of the OGs from the show. It's the starting lineup has a ton of potential. It just doesn't look right. It looks like it needs to be tweaked. That's just my take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't really argue with anything you said. I've never, again, what happened last year was all out of necessity, right? Guys kept getting hurt, and he just had to. Tibbs had no choice, so he had to play these guys, and that's how he became a starter. So the type of player he is, he just works better off the bench for me. He's an energy guy. He runs up and down the court. He's a human fast break. He rebounds and then takes the ball down himself. So from that perspective, I agree. But Ty, we're talking about the second unit. We're still trying to figure out who's going to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think his role would be in the second unit if he's moved there?
Wow, that's a very good question. I think the first and foremost, I think Tibbs took an African knife and tried to make it a Swiss Army knife. And that didn't work in Jumanji. He didn't get the right tools before we entered Jumanji. That's part of what we're seeing with Josh Hart. He just needed to do Josh Hart things, and he was the kid that you knew in school that he didn't pay attention to the teacher. These are self-professed things from him. He doesn't have a high level of concentration. So you have to put him into some sort of role where it's chaos involved. And he can thrive in the chaos. I think if anything, he could play a little bit of the power forward in the second unit. That big rebounder against other smaller guards or small forwards where he thrives crashing the boards from out of nowhere because you don't expect it to happen from a guy his size. And then you're talking about somebody who's going to push the pace. Now you got back and forth second unit that's just flying at the court with campaign, with whoever, Deuce McBride. These guys are launching threes. They're getting out in transition very quick. Achua would be obviously moving probably into the starting lineup. So you would just put Josh Hart in there to be Josh Hart, which is a contained havoc. That's what he brings to the court. A tenacity.
Craig said, the chaos agent in the comments.
What's that?
Like Craig said in the comments, he's an agent of chaos.
That's a very accurate one, Craig. Shout out to Craig. That is very accurate because that's what you get when you put Josh Hart. He injects. I've always said I don't know what he does that's great. I just know it's great. And that's literally, I don't know how a coach can define him and put him into a mold by saying, oh, now you're a shooting guard. And you don't even shoot. You're putting a guy in a position. I always equated that you always should put people in positions where they can thrive. No matter what it is in life. You can't put an ant in, to wrestle an elephant. It don't work that way. So the same thing applies to when you see someone and they're very good at doing something and they're great and they excel at it, keep them in that role. Why would you want to lessen what makes them special? And what makes Josh Hart special, like Craig said, is an agent of chaos. You bring him off the bench. He wouldn't really negate the bench when you think about it. Because he's coming in, he's providing energy and rebounding. Those are two great things. Like,
yeah,
who doesn't need that when coming off your bench? But what you don't need is when you're putting him in a position and he's a starting two guard. That means you are a scoring guard.
Yeah.
When people might not realize, they might not be as old as us, but that meant you were the guy who did a lot of scoring in that position. I know we want to talk about positionless basketball nowadays, but your two guard position, you are put out there to score, not to defend, not to rebound, and not to be a hockey assist person. You're out there to nail down the shot when the open shot is available or create off the bounce and get some sort of activity going. You're a shot creator. Why would you put – he basically took Mitchell Robinson and put him at the two guard. That's what Josh Hart is right now in the Knicks starting lineup. So if you just bring him off out of that unit, and he could be any role in the second unit. He can hit the shots. He can play a little off the ball. He can actually be your point forward coming off the bench. So guys like
tempo-wise, that would work with the bench too.
What's that you said?
Tempo-wise, that would work with the bench.
It'd be awesome. Right now, he looks like the dog on the duck hunt. He's just holding up the ducks, but somebody else shot him. He's just holding up the ducks now. That's all he's doing. He looks miserable out there.
He does.
The energy guy, the guy who we fell in love with when he came to New York because he was just crazy, his bat hit, so to say. We love that energy that Josh brought. And then we're like, oh, this nut job, he's going to hit one of these big shots because people don't expect him to hit them. That's what he was. And it's like you're watching a guy who's just completely all the character and beautiful things he brings to the game and his personality. Because at the end of the day, these guys got to be joyous when playing the game. I know they get paid a lot of money, but what it says not fun when the rabbit got the gun. Well, it's not fun when you're the guy who's the class clown. You've been given Ritalin and told to behave in a corner and sit down somewhere and shut your mouth. That's really what he's doing now.
That's really a good analogy.
A guy for being a guy. The guy he always is. So it was preseason game 1. For me, I said, this is ugly. Get him you don't got to go 4 more games. The first game, he was like sitting there like, I'm like, get Josh the hell out of here. Are you serious? My boy's crying. He's dying out there.
Yeah, we are, Coach. That is probably probably the best description I've heard of the type of game he has. He really is just that wild, kind of, chicken with his head cut off when he gets the ball. Like he just kind of, and he needs the ball. Like that's the thing. Like he's not a great scorer, but he does need the ball to be effective because what he does is push tempo and he finds open guys and he is kind of that point forward when Brunson's out. He was always kind of the guy who was the main ball handler. And now that you have two other guys now. This is where adding Bridges made this really screwed everything up, because you added another guy who, yes, he can also handle the ball, create his own shot, right? So he's going to need the ball a little bit more. We are starting to see that from OG now, which is a very nice thing to see, that he's expanding his game a little bit, but we're starting to see that with him now. So he literally really just looks completely out of place, doesn't know what to do. Like, he's getting no stats, and everyone keeps bringing it up like, oh, how do you play all this time and not do? But he's literally just standing there and passing the ball. Like, he's the guy who's just catches it, passes it, catches it. He's not doing anything.
Okay.
So in the second unit, that's usually the energy unit, right? For most teams, the second unit comes in when the first unit is struggling or needs a boost. He's perfect for that. And that's where he should be playing. Yeah. That's where he should be playing. So I agree with everything you guys are saying. It looks so out of place, and I feel bad for the guy, because people are expecting what we saw last year. Like, people are expecting him to be that player, and it's not that he isn't that player anymore. It's just that he doesn't have those opportunities with this unit. So it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves, because, I think most of us, I'm all for positionless basketball. I don't think in this day and age you need to play a strict starting five.
I agree.
But when those pieces don't mesh well, maybe it's time to go back to a more traditional one, where you have power players in the front, and then your swing players are all, you have 3 swing players instead of having 4, because that's what they have with that starting unit now. They have 4 guys who are wing players. They're not, there's no one who's specifically a power player. Even Towns, who's a center, yes, he can rebound. So yes, he's definitely more of a power player, but that he's the only one. So they need a little bit more of a traditional lineup. I think it would be good going back to some more traditional lineup, maybe with Precious at the 4. All right, so sad thing happened last night. Landry Shamet looked like he really did a number on his shoulder, which is upsetting, because I think he was going to make the team. I think he was going to be that next guard off the bench. Even though I really don't think they need another guard off the bench. I think they have too many to begin with. But this coach likes his veterans. So it looks like now, though, that's not going to happen. He was on a 2-way or a 9. I forget the name.
I think it's Exhibit 9. I think
Exhibit 9, right? Yeah.
Guaranteed.
So, but we had another guy on a similar contract in TJ Warren, who we know can score. That's something this man can do. He can score in the NBA. And I think Shamet's injury will probably open the door for Warren. So, what do you guys think about that? Plus, now the opportunity for, say, maybe some of the other guys on the bench to get more time.
I think it's great. I think having an option like that sitting there, I've always liked his game. It was just, can he stay healthy?
Yeah,
that's always been the biggest part with TJ Warren. So yes, absolutely a great option. Shamet, I wondered if there was an injury going there, because his shot was flat out not falling. And he didn't seem like the type of injury, that kind of high impact injury like Randall did. So I don't know. It's a shame, though. I mean, basically in a fell swoop, he probably lost. I think he's only insured for $15,000, and he stood to make $2 million. So you hate to see somebody lose that kind of scratch on an injury. But I think, yes, that could open him up. I know that I think somebody said Mook in the comments, Craig. So, yes, is he still out there? Is Marcus Morris still out there?
They were going to attempt to bring him back, but he didn't want to come back. I forgot what the reasoning was behind it.
I think he realized there wasn't going to be a spot for him necessarily with the way things were shaking out. So they shook him loose, basically, so he could find someplace to catch on. But, yeah, sure. That's something that can happen as well. I'd rather have the idea of a bigger 2-guard, to be honest with you. We're a little bit small when it comes to our guard rotation. Somebody maybe a little bit taller, somebody that could defend a taller wing would be nice. But, TJ Warren, Marcus Morris, Landry Shamet, if you could get guys like this on your team when your salary cap situation is what it is, you do that. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of guys, surprisingly, a lot of guys out there, still who you could even add if you wanted to, who could come in on the veteran side. Ty, what do you think? Would you say Warren has the inside track, or do you think the Knicks might just decide to stick with who they have? Maybe play Daddy A after a game like last night. Maybe he's the guy who they go with and say, "I'm just gonna go with the kid."
They're going to probably go T.J. Warren. I can't see them not. Knowing Tom Thibodeau, he is a vet. You know, it's going to be vet or die with him. He wants the older guys in there, the more experience. And T.J. Warren does fit a need. You know, we do have some undersized guards. You know, and you need another wing type, maybe off guard type that's a little bit taller. I don't know if he would actually trust the actual rookies to come in and get play. I think the thing with Shamet, when you look at that injury, if you bring on TJ Warren and sign him, that gives an opportunity still for a guy like Kolek, who's a nice shooter from the outside. He can play off the ball. So I would definitely like to see them maybe try to fill it with one of the rooks and give him a shot. You know, keep TJ and use those guys sparingly in the role that Shamet would have had. You know, and see, roll the dice on that, because the bench proved that they have some talent. You know, it's not like these guys are like scrubs on the bench. They're working very well together. They know the system. I just think when you're bringing in another element like a Mook, and I'm a Mook fan, but you're bringing in these guys, you got to also worry about personalities. That's the biggest thing. How well will you mesh together as personality-wise? You know, some of these guys, you know, Tom Thibodeau's the kind of coach that he wants to hear you say, I'm going to go do it, and not challenge him. I can see him and Mook kind of button heads a little bit there, you know. So do you want that element? I can see, you know, him probably button heads with a lot of people, and we love him for what he brings to the table. Don't get me wrong. But you do want guys that are just going to kind of acquiesce and follow in tow the plan. Mook comes in, maybe he will challenge Jalen Brunson, who's the captain. Now you've got a lot of these different elements you got to kind of worry about. Whereas if guy TJ Warren, he's just trying to hang on to a job. He's come in, he's fit. You know, it might be the better choice to keep him and just kind of boost up one of the young guys and see where it goes.
Yeah, I tend to go in that direction. You guys know that about me, though. I'm very much about developing the talent that you have. Yeah. And with this team having enough veterans in the starting unit, I would be perfectly fine with them developing like I don't know if last night was just a flash in the pan, but the kid has talent. So why not just stick with him and give him some rotation minutes and see what happens? You know, that's how I would approach it. I do, but Ty, you are correct. This coach,
he does fit what they need.
Yeah, he does. Right, Daddy A does fit what they need. Like that's the kind of player that they need off the bench.
And he's got some defense to him too. That's the one thing I noticed.
Yeah,
he can.
Yeah, he can play some D.
He can stay in front of his guy. You know, he showed so much in summer league. I was very impressed because I was like, I didn't even know who the hell the kid was. Clearly, I don't think none of us did. But then watching him in summer league, it's like I said, Billy Ray Valentine. He just needed his legs. That's all. When he found his legs, everything was different with him. And now we're looking at him. Why not give him a shot? We're talking about a guy who's probably going to be the 11th, 12th guy on the bench, maybe coming off. It's not like you're going to lose anything. You know, Shamet, albeit
that's so important.
Shooter, who knows how many minutes Shamet was even going to get in this lineup because Tom Thibodeau has his favorites. Deuce is probably going to get a lot of minutes.
He is.
A lot of guard.
You can already see that. You could already see that.
He's getting 20, at least 30 minutes somewhere. I don't know whose minutes he's going to get cut, but he's going to get 30. So who else is going to get minutes? Campaign is probably getting the backup job.
He's getting the backup.
Getting, the bulk of the minutes on the off guard. So Shamet wasn't going to play that much, in my opinion. I mean, I like Landry Shamet, but I don't think he was going to play that much. So get one of the young guys to boost. Kolek, I would love to see Kolek get those minutes. Are you crazy?
Well, I'm glad you brought him up because that's my next topic.
My man, American Psycho.
Yeah, I didn't even know that's where you were going, but now that you explained that is perfect. Oh my God, yes. How can you sit this guy? That you watch him. I said it in the chat. He is the best passer on the team right now.
Period.
Yes, there is he is. I love Jalen Brunson. Passing's not one of his strengths. He can pass. He's not a great passer. Yes.
I'm over here, Jalen.
This guy is a fantastic passer.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why when you could play Jalen off the ball. Like you play them together. He could be the primary ball handler. He can get Jalen some shots. I'm dying to see a pick and roll with him in Towns. I haven't seen that yet. I don't think they played much together, but I'm dying to see something like that with him feeding Towns instead of Brunson feeding Towns. He's got a good jump shot. Like everything that you want from the point guard position, this kid has. Well, okay, everyone's like, well, maybe the defense. Yeah, it takes rookies time to learn to play NBA defense. I don't care unless it's your calling card in the league. Like why you were drafted, it usually takes time for rookies to learn to play defense. So how do you I like Campaign. I'm not going to say I don't. Very nice player. He's had some big moments in the NBA, but we know what he is. We know what this guy is. You know, he's not part of the future. This kid is part of if Jalen Brunson gets hurt, I want him starting. That's even how far I will go to say that. If Jalen Brunson were to get hurt, I would start this kid because I've seen him play in college. He was fantastic in college. He led a top 10 ranked team. He was the starting point guard for a top 10 ranked team. He's played in big games. He knows big moments. Nothing seems too big for him. Like I would go that way. I know they would not. They would be McBride probably or Payne first or everyone else before him. But I really like this kid. I liked him when we drafted him. I liked him before the draft. I'm really, really high on him. So seriously, how do you keep him out of the lineup? I want to hear your guys argue with me. I'm all in. Tell me why you wouldn't play him.
You see the offense, the way the offense moves with a real point guard in there, and that's something we don't see that often. I mean, as Knicks fans, I don't think either one of us, Ty, I don't think either one of us are going to argue with you on that. I think that the thing that the carrot with Payne was his playoff experience. Because they know this team's going deep. They want somebody that's been there before, has that going on. But you're right. The ceiling of Kolek is so much higher than Payne's, I believe. I mean, the guy's a true point guard. I do want to hop out. I saw something in the comments, Coach, I did see where Daddy A stared down the bench after hitting that three, and it was beautiful. That's all I'm going to say.
Nice. He's fitting in New York very well if he did that. Nice. Yeah, Kolek, you know, that's for anybody who don't know, free Patrick Bateman. That's because I call him the American Psycho. I'm a fan of Tycho. You know, that dude, he can ball. You know, I think it's a little underwhelming. You know, we talk about the hue of players all the time. You know, that's usually the first thing they go to is the hue, and then they say, oh, well, let me dismiss that person can even ball, you know, because he's less athletic. Well, we got a guy really on our team who's our star who is less athletic, but he's a killer. Yeah. You know, I described him as being Brunson with greater passing. That's what we're seeing with Tyler Kolek. In fact, he is a fan of Brunson. He said he patterned some of his game after Jalen Brunson. So you bring in a guy who probably is not wired to score as much as Jalen, but he's wired to run a team. And why would you not bring in that extra dynamic of that guy? You can play him off the ball. And I don't think his defense he's not the worst defender. I mean, granted, he might be a little undersized, but we've seen him be gritty enough like Jalen is to be willing to stand in the pocket and take a charge or just get in someone's face and play tough enough defense or at least appear to be playing some sort of defense. When you bring in that dynamic of a guy who can pass, guys are going to run harder. They're going to cut harder. Yep. They're just going to want to be out there playing next to that guy because they know they're going to get the ball as opposed to someone who's going to hold the rock and you got to wait for your turn. So Tyler Kolek, I mean, no argument here. The guy needs all of his minutes increased. Like I said, those minutes that Shamet got, give him the time. Why not? What are you going to lose? You're going to lose. You're going to get a guy in there who almost had a triple-double last night? Almost had a triple-double as a rook?
I know.
You know, and he's playing out there against starters from the other team. Why not just give him the opportunity, give him those 10 minutes that Shamet would have gotten?
And Summer League is Summer League, but he came out that first preseason game, and you could tell he belonged. In most sports, even in training camp, pros will tell you when a rookie comes in, they'll tell you whether they've got it or not pretty much right away. You hear that a lot in training camp. With him, he just arrived and he could play to that level. It was obvious. And he's only going to get better.
Yeah, he's not tentative at all. He doesn't look afraid. Like, he comes out there, you could tell he feels he belongs. So, yeah, I mean, I'm surprised thinking about it. I'm surprised he was a second rounder, right? He should have been picked in the first round.
Big time.
In a very weak draft.
Yeah, like, very, very strange. But I mean, obviously, I agree with everything you guys are saying. He deserves to be in the everyday rotation. I don't know if that means no campaign is now behind him, then that's what it means. Like, I'm not, I don't think you can just go like, oh, he's a rookie, he has time. No, like, his time is now, and you want your best players on the floor. It should be about playing the best 5 that you want to play at that time. And I think he's one of the 10 best players on the team. So
yeah, he is.
You know something funny? I think this is the most the three of us have ever agreed in the session.
We're
like aligned.
But there was talks, I think, before we got into training camp, that the initial thing was that the Knicks, I forgot who reported, it might have been Katz or whatever, but reported that the Knicks were not bringing in campaign to be necessarily the backup. It was that he was there, but it was for Tyler Kolek to actually play more minutes. Like, it wasn't like this positioning. Now, it might have changed given who our coach is, but the initial plan was that Tyler was not going to suffer because campaign was brought in to kind of be the third string guy, and Tyler would have been the supposed, well, it would probably been the second guard off the bench because we know Deuce is getting all the first minutes. So Tyler was supposed to be like the third guard coming off the bench, followed by campaign. So, so I think they believe they gave him one of the biggest, I think the biggest contract for a second rounder.
They did.
So they picked him up. So they must have a belief in what he can bring to the table because they invested good money in him for a second rounder. I mean, what? He didn't give him the minutes. What is he going to do? Make the offense work better? I mean, is that taboo? Because that's really what you're bringing him in there. The only knock you can have on him is that maybe he's not a two-way player yet. Yeah. Other than that, the poise. You watch the camaraderie on the bench or those guys while in the game. Watch how they interact with Tyler Kolek. They believe in him because the guys on that team are constantly like nudging him after a good move and encouraging him up. So there's a great trust in there. And you hear Jalen even say in his snarky way, I like Tyler. He just don't like where Tyler went to college, but he's like, no, I like Tyler. And what did he do all summer long? Him and Jalen was hanging out with Brinkley, in the gym. That's what they did all summer together. So, you got who better to learn from than most of the guys who are on the Knicks squad, especially a guy like Brunson. The leadership qualities, the work ethic is there. You got guys that if you're coming behind those, like Donte, like Kolek, I don't know the other kid. I can't. What's his name? He hasn't played any at all. The kid from Kansas. McCullough. He hasn't played at all. We haven't seen the real glimpse of him yet. But you got these guys that are ahead of these guys. The starters. They're great culture builders. So these guys are learning every day in practice from those. People who think Tyler Kolek's not going to be ready playing against Jalen Brunson in practice every day. Jalen Brunson is beating 4 guys on the other team. He's scoring on 4 guys. So imagine Tyler now is getting all that intel and
once he starts incorporating some of what Jalen does into his game and expands his offensive arsenal.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We're starting to see it. Like there were a couple times last night where he was taking that little floater from the free throw line. He was doing the runners. Yeah, he's starting to mix things up a little bit. And that comes with just confidence too of playing, like feeling confident in the shot and getting to his space on the floor. But yeah, I mean, this guy, like you said, Ty, they made a big investment in him because they saw that. And I think, we're going to reap the benefits for it. Again, and right now, the other way to look at it, he's cheap talent, right? Like, This team needs cheap talent, and he's a drafted player from a major college program, successful in college. So all that stuff that you want, that the coach should be looking towards, for a player, I think he has. So yeah, I hope that he just doesn't get buried on the bench. That's it. That's my only hope, is that he just doesn't get buried and then plays like in blowouts, and or maybe he'll do. Thibodeau sometimes coaches by feel, so maybe he'll just throw him out there because, hey, I felt like this was a good spot for him. I don't know. We'll see.
I used the force.
Speaking of a player who we heard was not exactly a fan of the coach, he came back this week. Donte DiVincenzo came back, obviously, when the Timberwolves played the Knicks at the Garden earlier this week. Knicks did a nice little tribute video, which, by the way, I freaking hate. Like, he's still in the league. Can we not do tribute videos when guys are still playing? Like, when he retires and comes back and like for a game, yeah, do a tribute video all you want. That's the time for it. But they gave one for him and Julius. But he's known as a trash talker, and he was doing a little talking at the line. I think it got blown up to be something bigger than it actually was, but that's New York. That's the media. That's what the age we live in. Do you believe him? Do you believe that he didn't have a problem with the diminished role? That'll be my first question, and that he didn't voice that and want it to be out.
I don't think he had a problem with it. I don't know how some things get leaked with the Knicks and not. I don't think he had a problem with it all. I think he had a problem with being traded, honestly. And I've heard some people say that it was unprofessional of him and this and that, but he's got a right to feel however he wants to feel about that whole thing. I mean, he came to New York. Yes, there were other players recruiting him. I wouldn't be surprised if he took less money to be here. Again, he was in a prime situation to play with some of his really, really close friends and to make a run again. And I'm sure that meant something to him. So him being upset or bent out of shape, I get that. He could feel however he wants to feel about that. Absolutely. I think, again, this is the kind of thing the New York media thrives on, though, too. And I'm sure the coverage of it was more than a little crazy. But, I'm sure Randall feels a little bit kind of cast away, too, during this. He decided to kind of close his mouth a little bit on it. And, yes, I'm very happy to be in the Timberwolves, but I don't know. I will say, as far as the tributes, I like them. We historically have had such bad PR as an organization, and we're trying to promote this once a Knick, always a Knick kind of thing, and we appreciate the people.
Hate that too, anyway.
And all of that stuff, so it fits in well with that. I even hope that they would have done it for KP after a couple of years passed, because he was a source of excitement for this team when, let's face it, it was pretty goddamn boring, to be honest.
All right, hold on a minute. I need to bring a couple of guys up, and you're going to tell me that they're once a Knick, always a Knick? Antonio Davis. He's once a Knick, always a Knick?
Only when he goes into the crowd to choke a fan.
People have to contribute. Don't get me wrong. They have to contribute to get the tribute.
Andrew Lang, who broke Patrick Ewing's wrist, he's once a Knick, always a Knick. He played for us too.
Nope, they have to contribute in a meaningful way. For the tribute, you have to contribute. Contribute for the tribute.
All right, now that's the word. You're right.
Oh, so how do we but what's the gauge for that? What do we consider contributions? Contribute to a playoff victory? Like, what is a playoff series round? You got to be on a team that won a playoff series.
I think
I'm trying to figure out what.
I think if they helped move the franchise forward, because we've had so much dead wood on our rosters for so many years. KP moved us forward. It didn't work out the way we wanted it to. Donte moved us forward. Randall definitely moved us forward. So yeah, give him a tribute video. It's a couple of minutes.
The interesting guy I'm going to bring up, because this one is actually not, he already is accepted as one, but for me it's hard to do, is Mark Jackson, who, yes, started as the Knick, but then went to Indiana and was on those teams that we freaking had wars with and couldn't stand. Right?
Yeah.
So how do you like? I get it. Yes, he's a New York legend point guard, played at St. John's. All that is included in this. I get it. But man, he's a hard one for me to say. Yes, he's a Knick when I remember the shimmy and the thing with the cross or whatever the hell he did, all that crap. I remember that. So it's very hard for me to have Mark Jackson as once a Knick, always a Knick. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's how I feel.
He's doing the cross.
We did trade him. We did trade him.
Was the cross with the women of the night? I don't know. Was it?
No, that was the X. The X is for the women. The cross is, yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, I was making sure I didn't know which one. Well, let's keep it a buck. The ceiling was very low for about 30 years.
That's fair.
For who was once a Knick, always a Knick. And I always say that I don't feel like I'm part of this group of what I'm about to say. I'm going to exclude myself from this because I've seen winning basketball before. But for a lot of people who didn't see any winning basketball, they are holding on to whoever came through that door. Penny Hardaway came and he played for that little bit of stint. And Knick fans were like, whoa, Penny's one of us. Yeah, he's definitely dead by the time we got him.
McGrady? Tracy McGrady?
McGrady was another one. He was McGravy by the
time. They
gave
away 2 first-rounders for him.
Yeah, he was Tracy McGravy, and all the Knick fans like, oh, we got one finally. And it's like, he was a broken jar of gravy at that point. Everyone we got was on same thing. Shout out to Jason Kidd. Loved Kidd since he was playing Cal basketball. He's a dope player, one of the best point guards ever. However, we got
the busted.
That kid from Kid and Play at that point. At that point. He couldn't do the dance with Play. We knew what time it was. He was on borrowed time, but yet we celebrate those guys because we've had very few things to celebrate as a Knick fan for so long that the bar has been so low that when we get these guys coming in, we're like, hey, how many times they love Rasheed Wallace? Like he was a Knick, he took a cup of coffee as a Knick, but people love him for being a Knick, because we've always wanted our star. And we didn't realize when other teams had those stars and we didn't have one. And it's been that way. Just a little side note. It's like I was going to put up an article about Derrick Rose talking about Michael Jordan. Wouldn't be Michael Jordan if he didn't play in Chicago and another market. And Derrick, let me tell you one thing. I love you, bro. You're a cool dude. Michael would have been a god in New York. More than he was in Chicago. Yeah.
LA.
Serious? He would have been even more bigger in New York than Chicago with the drought we have. Are you kidding me? Chicago playground basketball. And what who came up, the famous players from Chicago, obviously that's a culture in itself. But we're talking about basketball as a franchise. Trust me, Michael Jordan playing in New York, he'd be a god. He was already a god. He'd been a god times 3 in New York. Are you serious? That lends to what we're saying here now. The bar has been so low in New York because we just wanted a star. Any kind of whether he was old or new, we just wanted a star. So that's where I believe the once a Knick, always a Knick just caught fire and everybody uses it.
All right. Well, back to the topic. Back to Donte's little outburst. Ty, the stuff that the kind of little jabs he takes at Tibbs, do you think there's more to that, or do you think it's just fun coach player stuff?
Well, what do they say about a joke? Sometimes there's a lot of
truth in jest. Yes.
Yes, it's a truth to a joke. I mean, look, we live in a rabbit ear society, and this is what keep it what it is. Everybody is a Ralph Tresvant song. We know Eric and I talk about it all the time. Everybody's sensitive. Everybody walking around like, oh God, I don't want to hear the trash talking in the game. Well, trust, that wasn't even trash talk. It's usually more vulgar than that. It's usually to the point where they can't hot mic the NBA games because it's disgustingly probably would turn off all viewership in this world of wokeness. People, NBA wouldn't survive because we've heard some of the stories, the vulgar language that's been utilized. So Donte coming into New York, he was just traded. Should he be probably pissed off? Absolutely. Why not? Did we freeze out?
You did.
I might have froze. I'll be back, guys. I'll be back.
I think I know where he was going with that.
Well, I'm coming back.
All right. So yeah, my perspective on the whole thing was, with regards to what I just asked Ty, I do think there's a little bit something there to that. I do think that I do think Donte had a certain idea of the type player he was or is. And I think the coach maybe didn't always agree with that. And so when he makes these little snide comments, even the fact where he said, who do you want to hit? They asked him who do you want to hit the game-winning shot on one of his former teammates. He said, no, I'd want to hit in front of Tibbs. Mm-hmm. I do think there's something to that relationship not being the greatest. And maybe that's why when Minnesota was like, we want Donte in it, the Knicks eventually relented. Because in the beginning, they didn't want to trade him. That was part of the when they first started having talks about Towns, Donte was the guy that the Knicks were kind of like, nah, we don't want to include him. Can you take someone else? So I do kind of wonder if all of that is mixed into this and all of that is mixed into the response that he had when he came back. Again, I used to play sports. I played football. I talked trash when I played. It's a way to get in someone's head. That's how you look at it. And if you're a good player and you can back it up, it's even better. So that's what trash talking is to me. Whatever gives you an advantage, that's what trash talking is for me. So it was. So if I could get in someone's head and make them doubt themselves, then I'm a step ahead of them and I'm ahead of the game at that point.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
I asked Ty this last week. So obviously Donte fit financially, kind of sort of what they needed for that deal to work.
Sure.
But he didn't really contribute that much salary. Hart would have worked in that deal. Probably easier financially. So the question I asked him and the question I'll ask you is, if you had the opportunity to substitute Hart into that deal, would you? And kept Donte?
I probably would have.
Me too.
Yeah, I think I would have just for balance. I think it probably would have been a better player to include in there.
It's the closest thing we have to a two guard, and you never get rid of shooting.
Yeah, I mean all of that's true. So it definitely would have made the starting. He wouldn't look as lost in the starting lineup to me as Hart does, right? So yeah.
No. He has the offensive
go ahead
to exert himself.
All right. Yeah. So back to you got Donte coming back into the game. He wanted to, obviously he took a discount to stay here for one. He probably could have got more money on the market. Yeah. That's one of the things. Like I said, someone said it. I'm just going to repeat back what they said. They said if someone was to tell you that they were going to remove you from your best friends and send you to Minnesota, how would you feel about it? And that's what we're looking at with Donte. You asked this guy, he came in, he bought into the culture, probably sacrificed whatever he had to do for the team's sake, not using probably all of his talents. We've heard that before. And all of a sudden now you've vested, you got your family here, you've built a home here, you're believing you're going to stay here. Maybe you've gotten promises of that he would not be traded. This is stuff that we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. But clearly something was rubbing him the wrong way. And now we have to look at a guy like Julius Randle too. He was just shoveling the ground. Earl Monroe, a Knick legend, he was out breaking ground, having donated his monies, his own personal monies, to go and help out a Knick legend to build something substantial because he wanted to be the part of the fabric of New York City as well as being Knick probably for life. And they were put on a Greyhound bus and told them, get to stepping, as Martin used to tell him in his house, get to stepping. They told Julius Randle, 3-time All-Star, get to stepping. They told Donte DiVincenzo, all-time three-point shooter for the Knicks, get to stepping. You got to get up out of here. We want a big kitty cat to come here. We want you little mice to go. This is really what happened. Tell the narrative the right way about it in New York. These guys are bitter. Why the hell would they not be bitter? Donte DiVincenzo was a huge contributor and the reason why the Knicks are out of the first round past Philadelphia. Let's just keep it real. The contributions are there, and now you've got probably dealing with a coach that we know is completely stubborn, rides his players tough, and then you have the sidekick. No, even his son has said, it's not knocking Rick Brunson, but he's prickly. Everybody knows that about Rick Brunson. It's like This dude has an attitude issue that his son brings up on his own podcast. His best friend brings it up. Everybody, even when you see Rick get interviewed on other podcasts, with Jalen, speaking of Mark Jackson, he was on there. Everybody's got something to say about Rick running his mouth. So when Donte DiVincenzo's at the line, what do you think? Donte just was mumbling to himself? No. Somebody said something to him. Somebody was chirping at him probably from the bench. It could have been a prior play. For him to respond, it had to be someone saying something to him in the first place. Right. And, it was thanks Tibbs. It got misconstrued, obviously. We've heard all different interpretations of it. But he's like, no, I can finish. You said I couldn't finish all the other years. Now I'm finishing and one. It was basically an and one. He was talking his ish. Let's just keep it a buck. It happens in the NBA. These guys have got the biggest egos on the planet. When you play at any level or any elite anything,
level, yeah,
a huge ego to be elite at anything. That's a self-contained belief and arrogance that you have to be at those levels. I don't care if it's corporate America. I don't care if it's sports, whatever. You don't reach there without having a very high opinion of yourself. And not damn what someone thinks of in the process, because you can't worry about what people feel about you. So when looking at that, he's at the line. He's like, I'm going to net this one on you, and I'm trying to take your heads off. Why would he not? If you're a competitor, there's no politeness in competition. You're there to win a damn basketball game, and if you can talk some crap while doing it, then so be it. It makes it even more entertaining as far as I'm concerned. You can talk it and walk it, or walk it how they talk it, as the song said. If you can do that, big up to Donte for doing it. I don't find no problem with that, because technically if Rick mouthed off to him, shame on Rick, because Rick, you're the coach. You're not out there playing.
Right, he's not even playing, yeah.
Why are you chirping back at a player? Whether you got a relationship with him or not, that wasn't for you to do. It's a difference if the players out there competing decide to open their mouths. Because Rick basically, when you look at the replay, he got offended. He basically, I think he said something about it was some cheap shot you took or whatever. But you had to take a cheap shot at his layup. You had to say something. It didn't come out. What, he had like Tourette's of memory? Like, I remember when I was 5 and you said I couldn't lay up. No, Rick, you had to say something too. Basketball has a lot of talk go on. Thibodeau might have been the one most oblivious, because he really don't care what nobody thinks. He's oblivious. He's just worried about the refs and the score at the end. He don't care who he offends. He has no emotional attachments to nothing someone says or does. He's not even involved in that. So we know Rick really came out afterwards. If he doesn't go after Donte, that thing died on the court. That's really what it comes down to. Because it was the follow-up things that happened that made it worse by him looking like he had to be held back. You can see Jalen, poor Jalen. I mean, that must be very uncomfortable. Your best friend and your dad.
Yeah.
You see Jalen try to grab Rick. I mean, you got to look at how it all unfolded. He's like, oh, my dad's on one. You can see him, the wheels were turning like, oh, here he comes. Like, he's not going to let this go. And therefore, what you saw took place. Thank God it wasn't no physical altercation, but having to answer that after a game, I think that just did a disservice to everybody involved, Donte, Rick, everyone, but I think we have to get out of this belief that there's supposed to be this politeness while you're playing. Like, this is not tennis. Like, you got to curtsy while you're doing it, play with some sort of etiquette. It's like, it's basketball. These dudes are the amount of crap. Anybody who ever watch a pickup game? You don't watch a pickup game? The amount of crap?
But it's juicy. That's why people latch on to it. And it's a high-profile team.
Yeah.
And it's and that's one of the things about the NBA is that you're literally right on top of the court.
Yeah.
Right? There's no barrier between the fans and the players. It's literally, you could walk down there. Obviously there's security, but theoretically, there's nothing, and there's no like in hockey, you have glass that protects you from, there's none of that.
No.
So everything gets heard. Every little thing that guys say gets heard. And but it was, I will say it did add a little bit of juice to the game. So if that's what, people want to take from it, that's fine. But I agree with you. I was saying when you had the technical difficulties, I was telling these guys, like, I played sports, I talk trash. It's just a way to get in somebody's head and to try and gain a psychological edge. That's really all it is.
Absolutely.
So that's what they do, and I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a great part of sports overall.
I wish we could hear more, to be very honest.
I know. I know. I do. I'm with you there. I
would
wish we
love
could
to hear what, I mean, obviously we know it's going to be terrible, but I mean, I'd rather hear it if they could do what they said.
I know. All right. So I have, I just have a little thing I want to say about your show last week. Joe was making an analogy, some kind of analogy to, it might have been something having to do with who's a star and who isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually said that Karl Anthony Towns was not a star. And
yep,
I heard that.
I have to explain that.
Huh?
I have to explain
because I need to understand how a guy who's a 4-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA player, I need you to explain to me what you mean by that.
It's within the context of the offense that they're going to run this year. The ball is going to go down with Brunson. He is the star in the center of the solar system. What you have rotating around him are planets.
Yes, you called him a planet. That's what it was.
And he is a planet. Yes, he has contributed like a star, but I was making a whole solar system analogy. In other words, you have all these shooters rotating around the initiator of the offense and
the sun,
the genesis of everything, the sun, the star, and you have these planets rotating around waiting for the kick out. That's what I was saying.
Okay. Because I was sitting there and I'm like, I think he's a little more than a planet. Like, you could put him in the center and also have the other guys revolving around. And I think
I completely get what you're saying. You're absolutely right. It was within the context of the offense.
Okay. No, you're right. On this team, obviously, this is Jalen Brunson's team. So yes, he is the central
around him.
Yeah. Okay.
In the offense.
All right. I just needed some clarification because I was like, wait a minute. I feel like we have 2 stars on this team now, at least. Like 2, star players.
Anything I say bears suspicion. I mean, I think I've been wrong enough to warrant that. I'm occasionally right, but I'm wrong enough to warrant suspicion.
I'm gonna push this a little bit further. Who's the best player on the Knicks?
Brunson.
Brunson's the best player.
Brunson? All right. We're all in agreement.
So. Yeah.
We're all in agreement.
Now, most talented, I would say Towns, but best player, I would say Brunson. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I think Towns can do a lot of different things. And to our point, always when we're saying he doesn't always do all those things, which makes you upset and gets you angry.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you look at a total bag, who has more skill, I would go with Towns.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
No, I think Towns has a lot more skill. We just don't see it all the time consistently, like you said. But to me, Brunson's a stud. I mean, I just, and that's why I get Joe's analysis about, when he did the whole astronomy, doing all Miss Cleo. So on Jupiter, he's like, well, Towns is technically Jupiter. He's a big planet.
I did love the analogy. It was very, very clever.
I nothing for nothing, but I was working with paint in my shed. There may have been some stuff I was working on that I may have been like kind of tripping nuts a little bit there, but it made sense at the moment. I thought it was pretty good.
Well, a lot of people
it does. Like when you think about what the solar system is and the star in the middle, it makes sense.
No, you nailed it, bro. People need to think more paint chips.
But I agree with you as far as maybe Towns being the most talented, but with Brunson, you're just getting every drop of juice out of the orange.
Yeah.
Man. Like you're just getting everything.
Right.
Towns sometimes.
It's kind of the thing, like the super talented guy doesn't have to try as hard because he's going to be great anyway. Whereas Brunson is a self-made player, right? He was a second-round pick. He always been doubted. People have always doubted him, and he's always had to prove himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he plays still, even though he's made it now, but he still plays the same way. Like he still plays like the second-round pick who might get cut. And that's what you love about him.
Yeah.
So
No,
he gets the most out of every inch of his ability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I totally agree with that. I'm hoping that like that rubs off on Towns and we get that version of him, because if we do, this team's going to the finals. Like I firmly believe that.
I look at I think Towns, it has rubbed off, because there was a time that I think we've seen Karl Anthony Towns. I know it's preseason, but like I said, you still get an example of basketball. You get to see people's responses, how they attack games when they're not playing their game, when it's not your A game. And one of the best things I saw, I think he had a stat line of 16 points, 16 rebounds, 2 blocks. I think that was around what it was. And I think a couple assists. Yeah, that's getting it. That's getting it, because when you're not scoring that well, you get dirty somewhere else, and he went down and started crashing the boards and then playing defense and committing to that. Because the one thing we've seen is that he's still adjusting to the jump shot, is not falling with, the same as prolific as it does, when he was in mini, but he's decided to do other things other than try to just score. Taking it to the basket, he's done quite a bit of that also, mixing up his game. He plays like that. He only has to play like that, to be very honest. He has to play like that, and we got to obviously get Mikal Bridges, his touches and getting the flow. We saw one game where he was just phenomenal in that game where he was being featured. But Towns, I think a lot of Brunson has said, come in. Just come in. You're just coming in. Don't worry about the rest of it. I'm taking on all the pressure. You just play your game, and we're going to get there. And this team has a lot of talent, man.
It does. It's I mean, one or two of them get hurt though. That's the scary part.
Yeah, the depth
one or two of those guys get hurt.
That's sports, man.
Yeah. No, I know. You're right. It's sports.
We only need one guy not to get hurt. I'm just giving it a buck.
You're right. Like we've already seen that they can still do damage with just Brunson being healthy with that team. And you can assume that Bridges can give you what Donte gave you. Like, you assume those things. But I don't want it to be that hard. That's what I mean. Like I want it to be where, this team is firing on all cylinders when we go into the playoffs. Nobody's hurt, and we actually have a clean shot at a run here, because we are long
we have a 4-year window with this team as presently constructed. It's bound to happen once.
Yep. Oh, man, please.
They definitely put themselves in they put themselves in a position. I can tell everybody, if you are a Knicks fan, you just get your popcorn, because you're probably never going to see this again.
Yeah, this is definitely in my lifetime the most. I don't want to say star-studded, because probably the '96 team
talented.
Yeah, but well put together like that. I would probably say, like, I feel it's the best combination of players that we've had since I've been a fan of the team. So, do
you guys think that this is the best drafted segment? Like when you think about the totality of the whole Leon Rose era, do you feel like this is, well, one, we held on to our picks, which is a great thing too. We have actually drafted. But when you look at the totality of the picks that they've done, especially this past draft, which I think was them saying, we are losing all of our picks in the future. Let's draft heavy in this one draft and walk away with some down the line talent that we can filter through our system and grow, which is what I think you see with having Gaudier. You're seeing it with Kolick. You're seeing it with Haporti and McCulloch, or whatever his name is. I'll get your name right, bro, at some point. When you see those guys, do you feel like that the Knicks have just done a tremendous job? And it's probably shout out to Walt Perrin, who's getting these guys underneath the umbrella. Is this maybe the best we've seen talent by position? I mean, by draft position that we've probably done as a franchise in a very long time?
I think they've drafted well under Rose, except for Obi Toppin. I think the Obi Toppin pick was a mistake. Other than that, I think they've drafted very, very well, and that's all I'm going to say.
They've drafted very well late. Like
Yeah.
that to me has been the key. They've
But the
drafted
Nick
very
curse
well.
of the lottery still lives on. The lottery.
Yeah, I
curse.
mean, don't get me wrong. I think Barrett was a fine pick. I think Obi is a good player. Maybe he was overdrafted a little bit, but he's still a productive NBA player. No, but getting quickly where they got quickly and getting McBride and getting well, can't give him credit for Robinson. He was before they got here.
Grimes.
Yeah, drafting Grimes, who's looked very good in Dallas, by the way. You know, and then the guys this year, Kolek and Haporti and all the guys you named, and Daddier. You know, these aren't early picks, and the Knicks are doing a good job finding talent late. And that's how you build a bench. And then who knows? Like you hit on a couple of those guys who are better than bench players. You know, then if you know they can turn into something else, or you keep them and develop them, and they take on, you know, when these guys are passed or they don't want to pay them, they have an option to play a guy, you know, who can come in and slide right in and play. So I do think in my lifetime, but as you said, Ty, the key is they kept their picks. Like they've kept picks this time to draft. Even all the ones they traded in the Bridges trade, like we still have draft picks. You know, like it's not a complete like non-factor now. We're not going to have draft picks. We will still have draft picks. So it's the smartest they've ever been. It's the smartest they've ever been with regards to draft capital, and like that's the best thing I could say about this front office. I've always been critical. You guys have known that. I've been very, very critical of the front office, the ownership, but this front office has done a very good job, and they've stuck to the plan. They haven't deviated from that plan. And I think that just because of big names available, they didn't jump in right away and say, "Oh, we need to get this guy." You know, they targeted guys. They obviously targeted Bridges. We know they targeted Towns from the beginning. They waited it out and they got him. So, you know, that the competency of the front office is something that's surprising to me, and it should be surprising to all of us because we've just never seen this from the Knicks.
Yeah, because this is literally what, a 5-year plan? Is this the 5th year for? So it's 5 within. They made the playoffs with Julius that first MIP year. That, you know, then they had a little flail out, obviously, the year that followed that.
Right.
And then you're looking at 3 years after that, because they ended up having to trade off all those assets that didn't work. We went through the Kimba situation. They ended up getting rid of him, obviously. Kept Ev around for a little while. But they had some dead weight. But when you really look at it, it's been like a 3-year window, I guess. Technically a 3-year window where they've gone from not being great to possibly a championship team. They've done a hell of a job. I'm looking at the quick turnaround with even the hiccups that they had. This has just been an amazing build, because in one summer we've gotten in one basketball year we've gotten OG Anunoby, we've gotten Bridges. Well, let's rewind back. We've got Brunson 2 years ago. So we start from Brunson, then we end up getting OG, then we end up getting Bridges, and then the cat just walked into the cage unexpectedly, and this has been the turnaround from this franchise. It's amazing. This is all within a 2-year window. They've gone from being okay to being a championship contender.
You know, going back to the astronomy reference, one thing that I don't think was accurate is we went from a meteorite field with these pieces that didn't make sense kind of banging into each other into something that actually did make sense, a la the solar system. This roster makes a lot of sense. They took a talented roster that doesn't, and they made something that does make sense out of it. And that's hard to do. Accumulating talent is hard enough. Accumulating the right talent and the pieces that fit while upgrading the talent, that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I also need to give credit to the players that they drafted, who they traded for these guys, because we actually had players that teams wanted, right?
Yeah.
So you flip it to that too. We had RJ Barrett, we had Emmanuel Quickly. Guys wanted those guys. Julius Randle came here as a 6-man guy became an All-NBA player, you know, he was tradable at that point, and you know, Minnesota actually was okay absorbing him and taking him in. So you got to give a shout out to also the player development, and
Right.
I've been very critical of player development for the Knicks, but I mean, you look at guys like, no matter the injuries aside, Mitch Robinson's development. You look at Miles McBride's development and them being able to develop these players who they took late into rotation players or better than or starters, and at least make them assets for other teams as well. It's been very well done, and you got to give credit where credit is due, and I will. You know, I still have my problems with the coach, but he's part of it, and you gotta give him credit as well. So
I was shocked that he actually sat the starters. So that to me, when I saw that, I'm like, are you? You know, you saw then you're watching the Twilight Zone for a minute there because I came in late to the game. I was like, oh God, I forgot. Well, once I forgot that we were even playing. Imagine that. But I ended up coming into the game. I'm like, he's not playing no starters. I'm like, what? This is just different because maybe he's getting it. I mean, because there would have been a time I would have never thought he would have sat the starters, no matter what. No matter what.
Yeah, all of them. Yes, I could see a few, but all of them. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Hopefully, that's a sign that he's bending a little bit. He has the most depth he's had ever on any team he's ever coached outside of the Celtics, and he was an assistant there. But as a head coach, this is the most depth he's had of any team he's ever had. It would behoove him to utilize it and not put so much strain on the players that are in your starting lineup.
You know what? Joe just sent a message in the private chat, guys, about doing predictions. I was going to wait until the show before the season began, but why not? Why put it off?
Yeah,
let's get
into it. Let's get into it.
We will end the show with our predictions. Yes, we'll end the show right now with the predictions. This is the last thing we're going to talk about. Joe, you brought it up. You go first. What do you predict?
Exactly 54 wins. They're going to tie the 12-13 team, but not win a single game past them.
Okay.
That's kind of hard to argue with the 54. That's probably right, landing the plane in the right area.
That's what you're going to go with too?
I'm just going to, because for the sake of not just us being in unison, I'm going to say the Knicks, I'm going to give them probably 52 games. I'm going to give them 52 because I do buy the injury bug. It's going to bite somewhere. Yeah. Continuity is going to bite somewhere. You know, this is part of the makeup. When Shaman went down last night, I was like, oh, here we go again. You know, that's the first thing I think because the reason I'm going a little bit lower than Joe, there's going to be a rough patch. So Knick fans just get the rough patch is when Josh Hart's out there doing what we are bothered by. When he's sitting out there, he's like, when is my turn? Like Forrest Gump on the bench. I think this is going to be, you know, he's going to talk about his chocolates, you know, or Mike and Ike's, whatever the hell he eats, you know, and we're going to be hearing about Jenny pretty soon because it's going to be an issue with that because the fit is clumsy. And I could see there being an issue with Tibbs not knowing when to remove Josh and put in the best basketball fit. So that's why I'm going to go probably 52 because I'm thinking that that's going to be the beginning of the season when the real competition starts. That's when you're going to see what doesn't work for the Knicks. And that thing doesn't work. No matter who wants to tell me it works, that doesn't work. And I don't think it's going to work long term, period.
All right. I'm gonna be the bold one of the three of us then.
Ooh,
I'm gonna go with 57 wins. I think they're gonna be 57 and 25. I think they will be challenging Boston for the division. I think it's gonna actually be that tight of a race this year. So
are we gonna go deep? Like prediction? Are we going to predict the end of the book? Are we going to do that kind of prediction too? Are we going to the full end? I mean, are we going to finish off the chapters? Are we going to just say this is not going to be a sequel and a prequel? Are we going full novel? to the end, are we going to make a prediction about where the New York Knicks end up? We are in the middle of June. Where are the New York Knicks? Are we going to be talking about?
I'll do it.
Go on, jump out. Come on.
Eastern Conference Finals losing 6. This isn't a year, but I believe this team's going to win a title. Lose to Boston in 6. In the Garden. I will make another prediction, though. The top 3 seeds in the East are all going to be the Atlantic Division. I don't think that's a big stretch, but it's definitely going to happen.
So who's the
you're not feeling Milwaukee, I guess?
You doing Milwaukee? Knicks,
Boston, Philly, Knicks.
Are you going Philly? Are you believing in Philly?
Oh, I'm not doing that in any particular order, but I could. I think the Knicks will be 2, the 2nd seed again.
Wow.
I think Philly will be 3.
This is.
I don't know. Tough.
What do you think about this one?
Because I can definitely see them making the finals. I can see that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can see that happening, definitely. But what do you think is going to happen?
I think the years of being beat up are going to probably prevent me from saying they're going to make the finals. I still need to see it before I can believe it.
Because this is if all healthy. That means Mitch is back.
Everyone's healthy.
Well, because
you make that assumption.
Yeah, because Mitch is scheduled to come back by January.
Sure.
That's only a couple months. So we're going to have the team probably, hopefully by playoff time, they are at full strength and healthy enough, put it that way, because nobody's ever fully healthy. So we're saying, say the Knicks are coming into the playoffs, 85% of a team.
And whatever injuries are occurring on one team is being balanced out by health on another team. Like, Porzingis isn't going to be there necessarily, so maybe the Knicks are missing a key piece too. So you balance it out.
Okay, I'll say Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not going to say who I think is going to win though. I can't do it. I don't want to jinx though. That's why.
I would pay to see Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Knicks and the Celtics. I would pay to see that.
I just think the wing defense that we have now is going to be tough for them. It's going to be tough for Boston against.
But they match up defensively with our best player too. You have Drew Holiday defending Brunson.
No, you're right. Like it's an excellent matchup. Cat and KP too, like same draft, all that stuff. Like,
yeah,
it'd be a fantastic series, I think.
But I think you guys are making the assumption that it's definitely going to be Boston in the finals. And my kickback is, meaning the Eastern Conference Finals. My kickback is that we don't know. I think
it should be. I'll say it should be.
It should be.
I think it should be, but
if I were putting money on it, it would be.
Is there a team that's not a Knick? Say move the Knicks out of it.
Philly has the talent to do it if they're healthy, and Milwaukee's cooked. I don't.
Yeah, but with Giannis, you always have a chance.
Not against some of the other teams in the division. I don't think Giannis alone is going to get you that. I don't know. I think Milwaukee shot themselves in the foot with that.
Dame trade.
Yeah, they should have stayed put.
Yeah, I agree.
They would have been better.
Here's a team that I'm going to throw out that I think if they were a first-round matchup with Boston, they might give Boston a little problems. And I know people are going to be like, oh, God, you picked that team? The Orlando Magic would be a nightmare matchup.
Orlando's
the Boston Celtics in the first round. If they pull them in the first round, you now got KCP over there now. Paolo Banchero's a year older. They got a lot of
Franz Wagner's real too.
We got the Wagner boys up in there.
Both of them,
I think that some teams can be nightmares for other teams, even though the talent might not seem equivalent. You go, oh, they can't compete. You only got to steal one game.
No, and they got a bench too.
They got some young depth. And
Yes, Suggs,
versatility.
Suggs is getting better too. Yeah,
Jonathan
Yeah.
Isaacs is good off the bench as long as he could stay healthy too. I mean,
Because they are
they're
nice
players.
with matching up. See, a lot of times you look at teams, you go, oh, Boston. That's why I'm not penciling them in. I always respect the champs. We know about that. But we've not been seeing back-to-back champions either recently. The trend is every year somebody else is winning, somebody new. You know, teams get better. You know, that doesn't mean – I don't think Boston got worse, but I do think you always have to add in some depth to kind of keep it going. You know, we saw it with Denver. Denver had the great season. I said, oh, they might be the first back-to-backs in a long time. What ended up happening? They dud it out because they lost a lot of their depth. And maybe guys also lost a little bit of their hunger for wanting to win a title because they had already won. I think what Boston provided last season was phenomenal, but it wasn't a anomaly season. You know, it was the one year you never will see someone do that again, probably. What they put up as far as the statistics on both defense and offense. So you're asking them to repeat and then run away with the league again. I don't see that happening because everybody's going to give them their best shot. They're going to get everybody's best shot right now. They have a target.
Yeah, they're the hunted now, yes.
You know, so they're the hunted ones. They were doing the hunting and they were hungry. Now everybody else wants to get fed. So it's going to be a little bit different. I'm just saying that the Knicks, much like we saw with our Yankees this year, if you're a Yankee fan, you know, we avoided the team that always beats us, the Astros. So, yeah, now we're a couple games out of the World Series because our nemesis is no longer there. The same could be applied to Boston maybe not making the Eastern Conference Finals or being injured at some point and losing one of their players. It happens all year long. Like we've lost players, but we had a different kind of resolve. A team like Indiana, if they fell late, if they fell into the 8th seed to play with Boston or 7th seed, that's a nightmare matchup for a first-round team of guys.
Yeah, we're forgetting about them, aren't we?
So Boston is
not
a fake walk to the finals. If they get into the Eastern Conference Finals, they're going to get there beat up to a degree. They're not going to be a juggernaut. So that's what I'm saying. Like I think the foregone conclusion is, oh, let's just pencil in the Knicks and Boston, whereas it could be the Knicks and another team because Boston bounced.
Okay, you're doing a lot of this, but I'm not hearing a lot of predictions. So,
I'm saying this. I'm going to give you my prediction. I think the Knicks are going to the NBA Finals.
Okay.
I do believe that this is the season, if all is healthy and all that Jalen Brunson is, because I believe Jalen Brunson is saying this year to everyone, I'm not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. He ain't doing 5 no more. He's going to want a challenge to be the MVP of this league. And that is going to bode well for the Knicks because that dude is friggin' locked in. Early.
Okay, so what's going to happen in the finals?
The finals?
What's the prediction for the finals?
Oh, depends on who we play, but I'm not scared of anybody. Who would you be scared of?
Are we winning the NBA championship?
I'm going to say if we're healthy, if we get out of the Eastern Conference Finals, why can't we win it? What team is it?
What is the prediction?
I think we can win a title this year.
Okay.
It's been New York's year all around. I don't care. I mean, I'm just going to go with the ghost. The New York Knicks, why would they not win the finals this year? Some team from New York is going to win the baseball World Series. The WNBA has. I'm just going to go with the whole voodoo here. Why not the Knicks? I mean, sorry, you Jet fans. I know Arizona is. So
Did you have to go there?
Well,
really?
Because then you're going to get those people go, oh, what about the Jets? What about the Giants?
Your poor Jets, they get Devontae Adams and Buffalo goes out and gets Amari Cooper the same day.
Yeah, Adams is better, so I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about the fact that Jets can't stop the run. That bothers me more than anything else.
I believe the curse gets lifted. That's my point. If the Knicks are healthy, I think the Knicks can win the finals this year.
I'll say this. If the Jets turn it around and wind up making the playoffs and going on a run, I'll believe anything. So if the Jets
I think we all believe they could. I think we all believe that.
But the Knicks can win the finals?
I think all of us think that they could.
Oh, I'm buying it because I don't look at there's one team that everybody's making the boogeyman, and that is the Boston Celtics. But I don't think they can be the boogeyman 2 years in a row like that. It's very hard to replicate, and there's a reason there's not a lot of back-to-back or dynasties in the league. It's tough to do that. And albeit I think Tatum and Brown are very talented guys, I've never bought them being these great players. I think they are great high-end players, but I don't think Eric knows. I've talked about this a long time ago about Jason Tatum, and it's not knocking him. I'm like, why is he never in the MVP conversation? Like, we never hear.
He was last year.
Last year, that was the first year, and he was thought to be an elite talent. But when you look at his numbers compared to Brunson, they're very equal in production.
Yeah, they are. You're right.
You know, so you got a stud on the team that I just know. I've watched some highlights of Brunson from last year's playoff because I got no life, as I tell everybody. I'm just a basketball nut. That dude was cooking 4 or 5 guys on the opposing team, and he had no help. There wasn't no definitive help because we got to realize what team, the type of team he took to 2 rounds. He didn't have
a second star. You're right.
With a star. He took him with high-end or good, solid role players who knew their jobs and were good at doing it. Not knocking them. Well, let's keep it a B. This was Jalen Brunson and another dose of Jalen Brunson for 2 years. And they went where he took them. And that's been 2 years straight. If he's coming back improved and now got another guy that you have to double. You have to double. You can't let Karl Anthony Towns just get loose. You can't. So now you're saying
you have another option, right? Like they have another guy to go to now if they need to.
You gotta tell this guy. This dude
he hasn't had.
Yeah. Imagine, because the one knock against Julius, he wasn't here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Literally.
Right. That's what it was. We all were saying we would like to see him healthy in the playoffs with Brunson and see what they could do together, fully healthy. And we never saw that.
And the better match and the better pairing is him with Brunson, Cat and Brunson. Way better pairing.
Yeah, it is. It's a better fit.
Better spacing. Now you're telling Brunson you're not probably going to see any doubles in a half-court game. Are you kidding?
Right, because they'll definitely go with Towns. Yeah.
He's going to burn them.
Yep.
He's a guy who's probably going to. Last year he was Michael Jordan last year. Literally, he was Michael Jordan in the playoffs. It was him and Mike. Those are the two hanging out with those numbers.
I know.
You telling me that he's going to get a guy who's a 25 and 15 capable guy in a playoff series? Fine.
Yeah, I mean, Towns was great last year in the playoffs too. He was fantastic. So if they get that guy, I mean, they definitely can win the East. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I definitely could see them in the finals. Again, it's just the Knicks, the Stockholm syndrome when it comes to the Knicks. I've been beat up way too much to believe.
It's the health luck for me. That's the only reason that I'd worry is because of the health. But I'm just saying, hey, this curse got to be lifted at some point, and we have. If this team can gel what we're seeing, a new starting five, and they're 4-0 in the preseason. Not that it means anything. I don't care about the record, but it's just the continuity and how they're playing together and the cohesiveness.
They look good. They do look good.
You can get that built over an 82-game season, and you got a highly confident, competent star on your team because we do have a star. We definitely have a star now. So you got a guy who needed a sidekick. And if Karl Anthony Towns is your sidekick.
Yeah, could do a lot worse.
So we believe that the Knicks can win the NBA championship.
Absolutely.
Ty said they're going to. Like he said it. They're going to win it.
I don't know why not. I just want to know a team that I'm worried about. And the more I look,
we still have to see like what the season brings, right? Like,
well, look.
There are plenty of teams out west who teams that I think are going to make a leap.
OKC.
Yeah, OKC is one of them. Obviously, they've been there the last few years. Is this their year to rise to the top? Don't get taken aback by this, but I'm a big fan of the Rockets. They have a lot of talent. Are they going to take a leap forward? Is this the year they take a jump forward with their guys being another year older? Sagun is healthy again. Are they going to be,
But
there's a lot of teams.
What happens with that if they get better? If those teams get better, that makes it harder for OKC, who was the juggernaut last year, to get out.
Sure. No, I think there's a lot of talented teams, young talented teams that could be saying the same thing the Knicks are saying. Like, why not us? Like, why can't we be the team this year? And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying the league to me is more even now than it's ever been. So
the way I look at it is this: those guys, we have not only a top 5 point guard, we have a top 5 player in the whole league. So then you go to Karl Anthony Towns and ask me, do you think he's ranked below 10 in centers?
I mean, they have him. I saw the list that the ESPN released, and he was like 30th. I'm like, there's no way there's 29 better players there. I'm sorry. I don't care what you say about him. I don't think there's 29 better players than Karl Anthony Towns, in my opinion.
I agree. So, I'm just saying, like, when I look at talent, I mean, talent always wins in this league. And I always said that you have to have at least, and I think it's just been the way it's been throughout the history of basketball, you have to have at least 2 guys on your team that are in the top rankings of their position that they play. So you got to have at least, if you got 2 guys in your team, the top 5 player for their position, and then you put the right role players who are willing to just play the high-end role game, which your best 2 guys that you have on your team are probably the 2 best high-end role players in the entire NBA, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Tell me 2 better for role players that are going to play two-way basketball. It was Kawhi Leonard and Paul George before. You'd basically taken lighter versions, scoring-wise, but you took Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and you put them on the Knicks with 2 top 5 players. How can you not jump out the window and go, well, damn, who the hell is going to beat us?
I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you.
I'm worried about talent.
You're building an argument against people that disagree with you. I mean, that agree with you.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Definitely. I mean, that's part of the potential of the team that's really strong.
Yeah, man. I mean, I get tired of us being nervous because that's what I know it. Believe me, we all waiting for the bottom to fall out. And I'm like, for 2 years straight, this bottom when it fell out, they still got to almost the Eastern Conference Finals. So you just needed a little help. You needed one. And look at the Eastern Conference Finals. If Josh Hart doesn't pull his stomach, literally probably too many Mike and Ikes, and OG doesn't get the hamstring, Indy's not coming out of that. Are you serious? We're in the Eastern Conference Finals. We had bad luck, but the talent was there. I trust Brunson over anybody in the league right now as a killer. I don't think there's one player I look at and go like, oh, he would kill Brunson in the matchup. Look what he did to Wembanyama in San Antonio when we were dead for legs. There was nothing there. What do you do, a 60-piece?
They're going to be better too. Speaking of teams that are better.
That'll be the one team for me. San Antonio will be the team, I think, that will come out the basement this year. I would definitely say that.
Well, we discussed a lot. We talked about a lot. We made predictions.
Jumping out.
So let's end this one. Let's put a bow on this one. Do you guys have anything you want to tell the people? Anything you have coming up? Anything you're writing? Anything you're producing? Singing? I don't know what you guys do in your spare time.
I think Joe said he's going to do some breakdancing in between the shows or something.
No, I don't think I got anything necessarily.
All right.
All I know is I got some plans to go to Mexico for Christmas. I'm pretty excited about that.
Viva Mexico. Which I was going with you.
I think I'm going to Iceland, but I'm not sure yet.
I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah.
Always wanted to go there.
That was where I had my connecting flight on my way home in Iceland. So I actually got to stand there for about, my connection was within an hour. So I got to be there for like 50 minutes. So, but
Reykjavik's supposed to have an incredible nightlife.
Yeah, I know. So we'll see. But let them know where they can at least get in touch with you guys if they want to talk to you.
Okay, you can get me on X at at Upstate Joe, AKU, or the fan page.
All right.
Check me out, Genius Scribble on the X. You know I'm always on the Dang On fan page because I have no life. So come join me and have
You guys see my information right there
Mhm.
at finally33 on X, and for the show at all_Knicked_up on X as well. Check us out over there. As the guys mentioned, check out the All Knicked Up fan page. A lot of you might be even watching this right now on the All Knicked Up fan page. So leave us comments about the show, things you want us to talk about. If you have any articles you want to try, you guys can try and post stuff. We have to approve it, but we can definitely put it up there if you want to post your own content up there. So definitely give that a try as well. If you're interested in pop culture and comic book movies, I do a show called Straight Outta Gotham at straight_O_G on X. And you can find that show anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, which is where it's hosted, Apple Podcasts, so on and so forth. You could check us out over there. I just posted a new episode last night, so go check it out if you're into that stuff as well. If not, we will see you guys soon, most likely next week, depending on all of our schedules. I think we're all going to be here, so we most likely will be back next week. Again, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We always thank you guys for watching us, coming, supporting the show. Much love, much respect to all of you guys out there. And for Ty and Joe, I'm Eric. You are watching All Knicked Up, and we will see you next week.